Greetings everyone. Today is our day 15 on this course, PMP6 exam prep step by step. In our last class yesterday, we started with project resource management, and today we'll be finishing off the rest of the processes. Yesterday, we talked about planned resource management, and over there we looked at different organizational theories, and then we later on stepped into estimate resources. And we stopped there. So today we'll move into the next process, which is acquire resources. So today, our first process we'll touch upon is acquire resources. So let's think for a moment. What we have done so far is, in terms of resource management, we in the cost and in the scope, we have got the scope, we have got this cost, and we have found out what is the resources that we require. We have estimated that resources. Of course, based on the plan, we made a plan before that. And we have a plan now to go through all the subsequent processes. Now that we have estimated resource, we are stepping into obtaining resource. And this is what this acquired resources will help us do. Acquired resources, if you look at the data flow, what is happening in acquired resources, we will have input from project management plan. And more specifically, we'll have resource management plan that we have drawn in our resource as we plan resource management. And we'll also have input from procurement management plan, which we'll look at in subsequent knowledge area. And that's because we will be acquiring resource. Sometimes we'll acquire resource internally, sometimes externally, and if we are doing externally, it is because we'll be procuring resources from external vendors. And of course, cost baseline will tell us what is our budget and so on. We'll also have other inputs from project documents like schedule, calendar, resource requirements, stakeholder, and of course, enterprise environmental factors and organization process assets will be there. In this resource, acquire resource, we are going to look at how we obtain resource, and once we do that, we will have some output, and some output will go into, for example, there will be update into project management plan. There might be something happening in the procurement. So the procurement management plan will get updated. Similarly, resource management plan will get updated. There might be some updates on the project documents or new project documents, like resource assignments and team assignments. And then there might be change requests as well, which will go into the change control process. The change request might come because when we are acquiring resource, we might have to change something because it has probably not gone according to the baseline. We might have to change some baseline. Maybe the schedule is getting affected. Maybe the cost is getting affected. So there might be some change as a result of that. And also there might be an update on the enterprise environmental factors and organizational processes. Now, acquire resources, when we do acquire resources, or when we are acquiring resources for our project, we have to realize that as a project manager, the authority, the control that we'll have will not really be the same in all organizations. And we need to be aware, cognizant of that. So what happens is, for example, as we talked about earlier, in a functional organization, it is a functional manager who has the authority. and we will have to get resources through the functional manager. We, as a project manager, we will probably not have the direct authority. Having said that, if it is a projectized organization, then probably we will have the authority to acquire resources directly. We don't have to necessarily go through the functional manager. Now, resources in the project, that will be the key. That will make or break our project. And because of that, we should take all the time, we should use all our negotiation and influencing skills with appropriate individuals or departments to get the right resources. Because if we don't get the right resources, if we shortchange the resource in whatever way, then it will directly impact the project. For example, if we are getting some materials and we find that we are getting low quality material, that will directly impact the project. If we are not getting the right skills in terms of team resource, we will get directly impacted, the project will get directly impacted. So that's what it's saying. Failure to acquire right resource may affect schedules, because what we expected was not what has happened, and probably the skill is not to what we expected, and the project might get slowed down. So it might affect schedule, it might affect budget, it might affect customer satisfaction, because we might not be able to provide the right quality, and there will be definitely some risk. So it is key again, we are repeating that we have to acquire right resources. Many a times we will have to probably look at alternatives if we come across some constraints. So let's say we've mandated that we have to get the resource from within the organization, and we find that the skills that we need is not available in the organization, or the skills that we require in the project is available, but they are tied up in other functions, and we don't have that. So in such a case, we might have to basically take additional permission, exception. We might want to take an exception and go outside the organization to get the resources. So we might have to look at different alternatives. Now the team formation, when we form the team, so basically when we are acquiring now, we are acquiring resources and we are forming the team. Now when we are forming the team, we might come across a situation where resources are pre-assigned. Now that really means some of the team members, some or all of the team members have already been selected in advance, even before you stepped in as a project manager. And that can happen for different reasons. Maybe in the project charter itself, it has been specified. Maybe because of some negotiation that happened with the client, or maybe because the company has some policy that you have to have the resources from within the organization, and they know that one of the project is getting over, and they've already assigned the members of the project that is getting over into this project of yours. So for many different reasons, we might have resources pre-assigned to our project. And when we have to negotiate, we might have to negotiate. If we have to acquire resources and they're not pre-assigned, we might have to negotiate in securing stuff from functional manager. If, for example, we have to go to the functional manager or from other project teams, for example. Let's say we find that another project we understand is getting over, and we know there is some scarce resources over there. We might want to get that, and we might have to step in to negotiate and to get those resources. Sometimes we might have to go outside the organization to get the resources. And a lot of time we might acquire or acquisition from outside resources. For example, we might be subcontracting and so on and so forth. So there are different ways we can look at how we want to form our team. Now, when we are acquiring resources, when we are deciding of different types of resources we're getting, we might have to make some decision. And many times we might be, or we might have to decide based on different parameters. It might not be so straightforward. And when it is not, this is a tool that can be very useful, which is multi-criteria decision analysis. So, for example, if we are getting some different resources, and we are hiring some people in our team, there are some criteria we might want to have a look at. For example, we might want to look at the availability. What is the availability of that person? Is that person available when we need in the project? Or what is the cost? Is the cost that will incur by hiring that resource be within our budget? Or what is the competency or ability of this resource? What is the experience? Does the experience of that resource match up to what we really need? Or what is the kind of knowledge of similar project or customers this resource have? How skillful is this resource in use of tools that will need to be used in this particular project? And what kind of attitude that person has? Can that person work in a team in a cohesive manner? Is that person a team player? And are there some intentional factors like time zone, location, and so on and so forth? So let's say we are planning to hire someone. And we want to look at all these different criteria. So we have to look at different criteria now. Like, it's not just about cost or availability. And what we'll find is, if let's say we'll have many different applicants, and when we have many different applicants, we have to see the combination of this criteria, which one would work best for us. For example, one might be better off in terms of experience, another might be better off in terms of attitude. So which one we take? So this is when we might step into and use this multi-criteria decision analysis. Let's take an example. Now let's say we are into hiring a resource. We're into hiring a resource, and we have decided we will go ahead and look at this criteria in hiring this resource. And we recognize that all these criteria are not equally important. Some are more important than others. So because of that, we put some weight on this criteria. For example, we are saying attitude to us is most important, and we are giving a weight of 0.9 out of 1. Whereas we are saying availability is not that important. It is important. It is not that important, because we can probably play around with the schedule in hiring that to match the availability. So we are saying weight might be, for availability is 0.5. So accordingly, we have put a weight for each of the criteria. Now, let's say we have two candidates we want to decide on, Sam and Ram. So these are the two candidates we want to decide on who would fit better in our project. And for each of these candidates, we'll look at the criteria, we'll look at the score, and we'll look at the weighted score. So let's look at first in the availability. For the availability, what we have for Sam is this person is going to be available after 3 months. So we need immediately, but this person is going to be available after 3 months. So we give a score of 3 out of 5, let's say. Our score scale can be anything, right? We have said 3 is medium, 5 is excellent, 1 is poor. This is the scale that we're using here. So we are giving a 3, and because the weight of availability criteria is 0.5, the weighted score becomes 1.5. Similarly, we look at RAM, and in this criteria, because RAM is available immediately, we are giving a score of 5. So weighted score for RAM is 2.5. We look at the next one, for example, cost. Again, we are seeing that what is the cost, and we look at the score based on the criteria that this particular person provides, and then we give a weighted score. So we put this weighted score, calculate weighted score for each of the criteria for both these candidates. For example, experience. Experience, we are saying that Sam has 7 years and Ram has 4 years. So Sam, we are saying score is 4, Ram's score is 3, and accordingly we have calculated the weighted score, WS. So skills, again, we looked at what it is. Attitude, for example, we are looking at the attitude for both of them, and one is 3, one is 5, and we are calculating weighted score again there. So for all these criteria, for both these candidates, we have determined what is the score, and we have calculated the weighted score for corresponding to each criteria for both these candidates. Then we sum this up. The total weighted score for Sam has come out to 19.2, and the total weighted score from for RAM has come to 19.8. So what happens is, in this multi-criteria decision analysis, we find that RAM is our candidate. So this is how we do the multi-criteria decision analysis. Then there is this concept of virtual teams. Now, virtual teams have become a possibility today, which was not before, because of all the technology advancement that has come about, and we can now think of a virtual team, and it really opens up the possibilities. It opens up new possibilities with virtual teams, something that we could not have thought about. For example, we can have teams spread out geographically, and we can really work together. For example, one person might be in Bangalore, another person might be in Toronto, another person is New York, and another person in London. And this person across the globe can work together. And that also becomes an advantage, especially when you want an expert in a particular field that is not available, or probably for a short time. You can engage that expert from wherever that person is. So this is a big advantage with the virtual team. Then there is a flexibility to work from home office. People can work from home office, and even if people are working different shifts, they can work together. That has been possible. That is possible with virtual team. People with mobility limitations, those people who are not mobile, they can also be included. And travel expenses can be avoided. Maybe what we would have to do before to go around, meet different teams, that can be cut down because of the expense, travel expense. We can cut down the travel expense on that, because we can we can have a virtual team. We can communicate well in a virtual team today because of all the technology. Now, one thing to remember in virtual team, Whereas all this is possible today because of all the technologies available, communication can be a challenge. And so as a project manager, we need to keep an eye on the communication, because if there is a communication breakdown, and it is very easy for communication breakdown to happen in a virtual team. And so we have to ensure as a project manager that the bonding within the team is there all the time. And we have to take extra effort as project manager to ensure that the communication flow is smooth and going on all the time. So we have finished this particular process, which is acquire resources. Now we are moving into the next process, which is develop team. Now, develop team, as we have mentioned before when we started this knowledge area, it is about developing the team. In other words, developing the competencies of the resources that we have, or team resource rather. Here we are talking about the team resource, and developing the competency as well as making the team environment productive, collaborative, so that the whole team will be able to function smoothly and produce better. If we look at the data flow for this developed team, we'll find that we are taking in input from the resource management plan in the project management plan, and of course many project documents as well. And then we will get inputs from enterprise organization or enterprise environmental factors and organization processes. As an output, what will happen is one of the output will be the team performance assessments. So when we are developing the team, we also would measure how we are doing as in terms of team performance. We are talking about the team performance here, and we'll talk about what it is. And this team performance assessment will go into the managed team process as an input. Then there might be some changes that happen, because as we are developing the team, we find out there needs to be some change in maybe in the cost, maybe in the schedule, maybe in the scope. And so when we do that, we might raise change requests, and that will go into the change control process. There will be some update to the resource management plan, and there will be update to the project documents. And of course, there will be update in terms of some lessons learned and so on to the organization process assets and environmental factors. Now, the developed project team, what we are concerned about or what we do is first and foremost, we improve knowledge and skills of team members, because we have now acquired the resources. And when we acquire resources, now we want to make sure that that resources will be able to function well, function cohesively, will be able to deliver. And we might find that there are some gaps in different knowledge and skills of team members, and that is where we might, one of the area we will focus in developing the project team to improve that, close that gap. And this can be technical, this can be relationship based, or some coaching. This there might be some training, we'll have internal, external, whatever, but the idea is that one of the objective will be to improve knowledge and skills of team members. And then we want not only the team members, we are developing individual team members, their knowledge and skills, but also we have to keep a focus on what is the interaction that is happening within the team. And within the team, we have to be cognizant of that we are improving that interaction as we are developing the team. And there will improve overall team environment. And the idea is that we have a collaborative team culture, because the team should work as one, and everyone is comfortable with sharing, and we will, as a project manager, will encourage to develop a collaborative team culture and probably we'll have some cross training, we'll have some workshops and so on and so forth to achieve that. Now, when we as a project manager, we understand that the team environment is key to the success of the project. A productive team, a cohesive team will have a much higher chance of success than a team that is not. So we will try to build create a high performance team. And the way we'll do it is, or some of the recommended ways to create high performance teams are, having an open and effective communication. So from the outset, we should encourage, we should demonstrate of open and effective communication in the team. We will create, as a project manager, team building opportunities so that different team members can bond together. And these team building opportunities can be, when even in meetings, for example, start of the meeting, there might be a few minutes team building exercise, or it might be as elaborate as go off to some place offsite for 2 days in a team building workshop. So it can range depending on how you want to take it, but team building opportunities is a good catalyst in creating high performance team. The way we will work with the team, we want also to develop trust amongst members, so that there is more sharing, and the way is to develop trust among members. As project manager, we will see that everything is dealt with fairly, and people are now not afraid to really share whatever is happening. We have to ensure that we are managing conflicts in a constructive manner, and we'll talk about conflicts, the way we different techniques, or the way we manage conflict. But as a project manager, we want to ensure that all conflicts are managed in a constructive manner, so that when that happens, we will find that people are owning up and people are more open, and they'll be contributing on their own. They'll be, you'll find them more initiated and so on. We'll have collaborative problem solving, basically inclusive. We include everyone's view, and even during decision making. So when these are some things that we can employ as project manager to create high performance team. Now, when we acquire resources and form a team, there is this model, Tuckman ladder model, that says that a team goes through different stages, through 5 stages, and we'll look at each of the stage now. Now, having said that, probably most of the teams do go through these stages, but there might be some which might get stuck in one of those and they won't move forward. Or for example, if the team has worked together before, then probably it will skip some of the steps. But by and large, this model says that a team will move through these different stages. The first is what is called forming. In this stage, the team basically comes together. They just starting to know each other, and they are still very independent, and they are not very open because they really don't know each other. They just started to know each other. And then, so after some time, they move to what is called the storming phase. And in the storming phase or storming stage, what happens is they have started working now. They've started working, and each of them have a different view on many different things. And then that's when things starts, there will be some kind of conflict, some difference of views. And that is when, there has to, they have, there has to be an open-mindedness, so that otherwise uh, maybe it will be, destructive. But if it is a, it is dealt well, all these discussion, all these differences can be very positive. Then after storming, after they have come to know, they have become more comfortable, they move to what is called the norming phase. Now in the norming phase, they are now much more comfortable. They've started working together and they understand that better. They start interacting with each other and so on. Then many of the uh, teams will move to performing phase. Now in the performing phase, the team is at its peak. They work as one, they are helping each other, they understand each other, they collaborate well, and so that is a performing. They are performing at a very high level because there is a huge synergy within the team. And then it is time for the project to close and it moves to the adjourning phase, and people say bye and move away from the project. So these are the 5 stages or 5 phases that is in the Tuckman ladder model. Now, in a project, when we are dealing with a team, depending on what kind of team we have, communication will play an important part. Now, for example, if it is a virtual team, then communication will be really key because there has to be an open line of communication all the time. And even for the co-located model, even then we need to have a good communication, and maybe not as good, the necessity is not as great as, or not to the same extent as the virtual team. So let's look at some of the technology, communication technology a team will use to keep connected, to keep bonding. One is the shared portal. A shared portal is a portal where people put things in and you can, and everyone can have a look. And this can be some kind of dashboard, or there are many different softwares that we have today and that can be used as a shared portal. Of course, in many of the organizations, you will have some kind of restrictions in what portal you can use, and there might be some internal portal as well, because there will be some, company rules. These are the softwares that you can use, and they might. But share portal essentially is where everyone puts their things in, everyone can share what they're doing and communicate through that shared portal. Then video conference. Video conferencing is another technology. It is extensively used today, especially when teams are spread out in different locations. Same as in audio conferencing. Sometimes you do video. Audio conferencing is, of course, much more easier today. Much more easier than video conferencing. And a lot of times, you will have audio conferencing to keep the team together. And then finally, email and chat, that will also be one of the technology that will be used extensively today. So these are the 4 technologies, communication technology, that will use to keep the team together. Now, developing the team, there are some things that we can think of or take into consideration. One is, we will use, as a project manager, our interpersonal skills or apply soft skills to understand and resolve issues. Basically, we have to realize that we have to be able to manage the team or develop the team, we need to connect to our team members. And once we are able to connect to our team members, that is when we'll be able to challenge them. We'll have to can give them more opportunities, or if they have issues and concerns, we can sit with them to resolve those issues. And that can happen only when we are able to connect to our team members. Training. There will be training that we'll have to organize, and we have to strategically plan for this training. Strategically plan, again, the same thing comes in play. We have to connect to the team members to understand what kind of training is required for this particular team member. And based on all that the different team members need, we'll have to strategize what kind of training should be given. Again, it can be technical, it can be at a management level, it can be a personal level, personal kind of interpersonal skills. So whatever it is, we have to identify and organize for that. Ground rules. The ground rules is a very useful way to ensure that the team acts in the way, or there is a very minimal, when we have a ground rule in place and everyone understands ground rules, there is you are setting an expectation, really. You are setting an expectation amongst the team members. And so you will find less of conflicts within the team, and in different, and this is what we talked about when we are talking about the team charter. In the team charter, we will put together all the different behavioral norms and the ground rules that should be applied, and everyone should understand that. Co-location, also known as type metric, which is co-location. When you talk about co-location, it is basically making the team, bringing the team in the same space, physical space. And now this co-location, so what happens is when people are working in the same physical space, there is more bonding, and there is, and it is a preferred way in many of the projects, especially in agile approach. It is said that ideally the team should be co-located. But again, when we talk about co-location in a project, it can be at a permanent all through the project, or it can be temporary. For example, just for one phase or one part of the project, we co-locate, even though everyone is away and dispersed geographically. For example, you might have a project where team is really dispersed geographically. But what you want to do is, during the design phase, you want to bring the team together in one place. And when the design is over, they go back to each location wherever they have come from. So it can be temporary, it can be at a permanent through the life of the project. Then you have to think about recognition and awards or rewards. Now, recognition and rewards, essentially the whole idea is to keep the team motivated. And so you have to think through carefully. For example, this recognition and reward should be throughout the project. It is no use giving him just at the end of the project who has done the best, because it has not played in terms of keeping the team motivated. And again, the kind of rewards that or recognition that we announce, it should be it should build meritocracy inside the team, and it should not bring one against the other. Basically, it should not bring in unhealthy competition in that sense. So we have to, when we think of recognition and rewards that we would like to put across, we have to think through carefully in that respect. And Again, another thing is assessment, team assessment, individual assessment. That is also important part of what we'll be doing as project manager, because through the assessment, we'll be able to understand the strength and weaknesses of the team members, and if what are the weaknesses, we can help them on that. If there are strength, we can leverage on the strength. So this is really, these are some of the things that we should be looking at as a project manager when we are developing the team. Some outputs from this particular process, which is the develop team. We have talked about the performance of the project, performance of the project, the performance of a successful team is measured by how we have done on the quality or project agreed upon project objective, how we have we finished on time, which is performance on schedule, and performance on budget. Have we finished within the financial constraint? This is how our project will be measured by. Our performance of our project will be measured, and performance of the successful team is measured. Now, corresponding to that, there are certain criteria how we can understand the effectiveness of our team. The effectiveness of a team will be measured by how the skills and competencies of how much the skills and competencies have improved for the team members, and have the team remained in the project, or there was a lot of staff turnover. Because if there is turnover, meaning a lot of people are leaving the project and new people are coming in, if there is a lot of movement in that respect, that means there must be something that was not working well within the project. And then how have the team bonded together? That is also another key thing in measuring the team effectiveness. Then we have the next process we look at, which is the managed team. So we have developed the team now. Now we are stepping into managing the team as we are executing the project. Now, managed team, if you look at the data flow, we'll have resource management plan coming in from the project management plan. We'll have some project documents, and we'll have the enterprise organization and environmental factors and OPA. From the process developed team, we have seen that we'll get input as team performance assessment, because we will be doing the performance assessment as we talked about, and those assessments will come in to the managed team process. And at the same time, what are the work performance reports from the monitor and control project work, so that from there we will get a clue what needs to be done in the managed team as we are managing the team. There might be some change request that goes in output. There will be some update to the project plan, update to the project documents, and into the enterprise and organization. Now, managed project team, when you're managing project team, basically we will be influencing the team behavior. And we know as a project manager, there are many ways we can influence the team behavior. And how we influence and how we keep the team motivated, how we keep the team together, will decide how successful the project will be. Oftentimes, there will be issues. And that is not something that we can escape when we are managing a project. And when we have issues, we will go about resolving those issues. And that is one task that will come about in this particular process. We will create high performance team, as we have talked about, and we will continually have to challenge and support team members. On one end, we have to challenge the team to do better, to do more, and because when we are challenging is another way to make them grow. So we'll challenge them into doing better and more as a project manager. And when there is a problem, they face a problem, we will provide them all the support that they need. We'll show them, give them more and more opportunities depending on what they're capable of taking. So these are some of the things that we'll do when we are managing the project team. Now, one of the things in managing team is conflicts. Conflicts, you will find that it's inevitable in a project. Now, how much of the conflicts happen? It really depends on the team structure. It depends on the way team is built up. If it depends on the size of the project and so on. There are different things that can decide how much or what kind of conflicts you have. Now, how we look at these conflicts, or what, when we go about resolving this conflict, the techniques that we use, what techniques we use, what approach we take to resolve this conflict will depend on different factors. For example, it will depend on importance and intensity. How important that conflict is, how important it is to resolve that conflict, and how intense that conflict is. Then time pressure, how quickly we have to resolve that conflicts. And what is the relative power of the people? People who are in conflict, does someone have much more power than the other? So that will also decide how the conflicts gets resolved. Or importance of good relationship. Is it important that the good relationship has to be maintained? Then you will see the conflicts, the way the conflicts is resolved is totally different, where both the party thinks that the relationship is not worth going forward. Then what is the long-term and short-term motivation out of this conflict? So these are different things that really drives how the conflicts are resolved. Now, there are different techniques in resolving conflicts, and each has its place. Each has its place, and depending on the circumstances, one or the other might be applied. One of the technique is called withdraw or avoid. Essentially, what will be done is, when there is a conflict like this, you will just retreat and probably postpone. And this maybe might take place when it is not so important, and it can, we don't have to worry about it now. This is when probably, or something that will probably eventually die anyway. So depending on the circumstances, sometimes you might want to take this particular approach. Then the next one is called smooth or accommodate. This is when the emphasis really is on agreements, and the idea is to bring the two team or the two parties together and come together in some kind of agreement. So this is a smooth or accommodate technique. Then there is something called compromise or reconcile. So this is when there is an intense conflict, so to speak, and there are different sides. So what ultimately happens is, both the sides give something up, and they come together in a sort of reconcile, come to a compromise really, and both the parties give up something to reconcile so that they can move on. So there is some degree of satisfaction to all, and this is often termed as the lose-lose, because both the sides lose in the process, in this conflict. Then there is this thing called force direct. This is enforced through a position of power. Basically, one party or one side will have more power, and that kind of pushes the thing, and the other side kind of give way. And so this is called force direct technique of conflict management. Now, this is again, it is called win-lose. Is also called the win-lose technique. And then finally, there is this collaborate or problem solving, where both the sides or whatever different sides, they come together, look at it logically, look at it objectively, and look at the different viewpoints and bring them together to solve the problem. It is an objectively done, it is with a long-term view, it is done, and both the sides help in getting a good solution. So this is, in fact, it is the best solution really, and when we are resolving a conflict. And this is why this is also called a win-win technique. So these are the different 5 techniques that is available when we resolve conflicts. From another angle, what will typically happen in project if there are conflicts between the members? Probably initially they'll try to resolve it, and if it doesn't get resolved, that is when probably you will come in play as a project manager. You will have to go and mediate and get it resolved. Having said that, it is important for us as project manager to ensure that we are resolving this in a constructive manner. We are fair to all the parties involved, and at the same time, we should not delay resolving many of these techniques, many of these conflicts, because if we delay, then it can affect the project. So we have to keep that in mind. Now we'll look at our final process, which is the control resources. And control resources, as we have talked about, it is about ensuring that we have the resource in the project, sufficient resources are available at all times. And when it's sufficient, we have to ensure that we have just the right resources. We don't really want to have excess resources there, because if there are excess resources available in the project, then we are taking the cost for no reason at all. And so we should be efficient, but at the same time, we should have available, all the resources should be available all the time in the project, because we don't want it to happen that suddenly we don't have resources are not available, then that will really stop the project and will affect in the project from various angles. So control resources, if you look at our what you call the data flow perspective, again, a project resource management plan will come in there, project documents, and then environmental factors, organizational processes. Now, we'll have a conduct procurement process. It's not conduct requirement, it is conduct procurement. Conduct procurement, that will also give us input as agreements. Now, why is that? Because what happens is when we're controlling resources, we might have resources that we have procured from outside vendors. And if you have done that, then the agreements will become an input, the agreement that we'll have with the vendor, procurement vendor. And then the work performance data, how we are doing in terms of executing the project. And as a result of this, when we are controlling resources, we will have output into this monitoring and controlling project work, which is the work performance info. There might be some changes that is coming in, which is a change request that will go into the change control, and there will be some updates to project management plan and project documents. The control resource, as you have said, it is about ensuring that we have resources available to the project at all times. So what control resource process will be concerned with are some of this. Monitoring resource expenditures. So again, there should not be too much of resource, not too much of inventory, not ideal resources lying around. Then that is going to be a problem in terms of expenditure. So generally, we'll have to keep track of the kind of expenditures based on the resources that we have. Then we have to ensure that if there is a shortage, you have to resolve the shortage. If there is a surplus, you have to avoid surplus. And we have to always keep an eye on what resources we'll need. We'll have to identify that so that we neither have shortage nor have surplus. And when we are executing the process, this process executing the project, in this process, we want to ensure that we are using resources to the right extent. And if let's say we don't need resources, we have to be releasing those resources. And that's what we'll always keep planning. We don't want to have idle resources. And even at the planning stage, this is what we talked about in one of the earlier knowledge area, that we have to plan for release of resources. For example, our project is getting over, and we know when it is getting over. We have to plan release of the resources in a timely manner for two reasons. One is our project, we are getting a proper handover of knowledge from people who are getting released. And secondly, these resources, they can go and do some productive work in another project in the organization. So we have to keep that in mind. And if there are any issues, we will have to keep stakeholders informed in terms of resources if there are any resource issues. Not only informed, a lot of times you'll find that stakeholders will be able to help you in resolving those issues. And in terms of resource utilization, we will be influencing factors that affect resource utilization. For example, motivating the team, or ensuring that the resources are getting properly utilized. And there will always be a lot of changes that is coming along, and we have to manage changes as and when it comes. For example, you might find that people are leaving. There might be some people, some of the team members who have resigned from the company, resigned from the project. So you might have to get some new resource and then train that, and all these things will come along as you are controlling resources. So with this, we have finished this particular module. We will move into project communication management tomorrow, and I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, I'll be sending a practice test for this module soon, maybe tomorrow, early tomorrow. Thank you. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.